I am Dr. Pavitra Bharadwaj. I am Associate Professor in the Department of Computer Science, Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi. So friends, in this particular series of lectures, we are talking about web programming, and in this we are first building a base and we are trying to learn the basics of how the internet functions, how the internet is laid down, how the web pages are identified, and how the communication across web pages takes place. After this, we will be moving to the designing part and to the programming of web pages on the client's end and the server's end. So, we were talking about domain names and how computers identify each other using the numbers which are known as IP addresses internally, but for the sake of users, very commonly names are used which are known as domain names. So, actually what we are trying to say is that if we look at a website, say for example, if we look at a website, we identify the website with the name, say www.abc.com. Now, this abc.com is a name which is being used for the user's convenience, but internally the computers will not identify each other, or the communication will not take place using this name, but it will take place using the numbers. The main reason why we are bothering with these names and numbers is the convenience that human beings find it more easy to remember. So, we can also use IP addresses instead. If we are convenient, if we know the IP addresses of the devices that we want to connect to, then we can also use IP address to talk to them, or we can use IP address to look for them. Okay, and it is easy to find an IP address for a given domain name on the internet and vice versa. So, there are multiple applications which can be used, like NS lookup is one of the applications which is freely downloadable, and you can use that to find out the IP address corresponding to any domain name and a domain name corresponding to an IP address. So, if we were looking at the parts of a URL, so we were talking about the port number. So, we said that port is actually the virtual point where the server listens to the request. So, generally in the URL you will not see the port number is there because it is optional, and if for HTTP, as I already said, that the port number is 80. And of course, then you have the complete directory and resource path, that is on a particular system where exactly the file is located. Now, it also depends upon the operating system which defines the URL. Although when you are using it on the internet, the web page or the whole thing, it doesn't matter because it is platform independent, but the URL still will have to follow the characteristics of the host. Say for example, if we are using a host which is Unix or Linux based, then the URL is case sensitive, but if we are using a host which is say Windows based, then the URL may not be case sensitive. So, but it is always advisable that whenever you are using a URL, you use it in lowercase, so that all kinds of systems and all kinds of operating systems and platforms will support your URL. So, conventionally whenever you will see that URLs are specified in lowercase. Okay. And all URLs you will see, they are in this the various parts. Say for example, you have HTTP, then you have : // So, these are all separated by forward slashes. So, if multiple users are hosted on a particular system, then the first part of the path will be /user or the tilde sign, and you will use the user, because in that case it means that more than one user is using the services of this. And then finally, in the last part of the path, we have the resource desired, and we use an HTML extension. So, if it is an HTML page, it will always have the extension .htm or .html. If no resource is given, then the server will try to display a page named index.html. And if it is not found, even index.html is not found, then it will display a directory listing if that is permitted by the host computer. Index.html is what? Index.html will be the first page of the website or of the portal on the server. So, if a particular page is not specified, then the home page or the first page or the index page will be displayed. So a fragment identifier can be used to specify a given part of the HTML page. So for example, if we put the URL, say someaddress.com/intro.html #page 3. Now this hash is going to take you to a particular section of a page. So you can control it both ways. Okay, so if it is a long document and you want that the user should directly land on a particular segment of the page, then that can also be specified in the URL. And if you are not sure which page the user should land, then you can simply direct the user to come to the home page. So it can be as micro controlled as possible, and it can be as generic as possible. So because now graphics are not embedded in the web page, so the location of the graphic is indicated to the web browser with a path in HTML. So these paths or the URLs are used very commonly for referencing of pages. Actually, this is the only mechanism by which pages are referenced on the internet. Now we know that page is reference, we can identify a page, okay, and now we want to send some data to the page. So in computer networks, basically we talk about these two issues, these two topics, but here because we are talking about how data is traveling from one system to the other on the internet, therefore this becomes relevant here also. So we talk about packet switching. Okay, so packet switching is one of the very important concepts that we take up in the internet. So we talk about two things in packet switching. First is the packets, and second concept is the switching concept. So packet, basically the word packet is used for a message which is being broken down into smaller pieces, and the size of the packet is generally 1 kilobytes in in size. So what happens is that you have a larger message which needs to be transmitted from one system to the other on the internet. Now the entire message will be divided into smaller portions, it will be sliced into smaller portions, and each portion of the message will be getting a header, and in the header there will be some extra information which will be appended to the main message. Now what is that extra information which is appended to the main message? So it will have the destination IP address, it will have the sender's IP address, and it will also have the sequence number of the packet and the total number of packets that will make up the message. Besides this, there can be other information like error correcting bits or error check bit also, which may also be sent in the header. So basically what is a packet? A packet means your original message which is divided into smaller pieces, along with that the header has been inserted. Now what we have, instead of one long message, we have got a number of small packets, and each packet is numbered. So and the total number of packets is also known. So therefore now it is not essential that all the packets will take the same route or they will be sent in a particular order. Now the packets will reach the destination using different routes, okay, and they will be reaching the destination in any particular order. Because they are numbered, so they can be reordered at the destination site. So now what happens is, now comes the switching aspect, that the packets can be switched to different routes to get to the destination. Now how this is determined? This is determined because by the network traffic. So whichever route is available, whichever route is the best route for forwarding the packets, the same route will be chosen. So therefore what will happen, that because each packet is following a different route, so when they reach the destination, they will reach in any order and there they will be rearranged. So this packet switching is the main the main concept, or it is the main philosophy, or is the main way in which the network or traffic or data will flow on the internet. Now in case of internet, we already saw that the main or the most common protocol which is used is the HTTP protocol. So this HTTP protocol is set up and it works in terms of requests and response. So in a typical World Wide Web, whenever say we type a URL in the browser's location window and we press the enter key, so browser will send a message which is actually a request message to the server asking for the HTML page, and the web server will send the page back or a reason why it cannot send the page. So either way, either it will send the page or it will send the reason as in why it is not able to send. You many a times we see that we get some error, like you get an error 404 or different types of errors you can get. So basically what is that? That is also a response. So response could be either the page which you have asked for or it could be the error message. So a typical internet request will actually look like a URL. So the browser will need to know the IP address which is assigned to the URL. So what happens? Now it needs to first contact the domain name server. If you remember, we had said that the domain name server is that system which keeps a complete list or a complete mapping of all the domain names with their IP addresses. So the user is going to type the domain name, but the browser is going to contact the DNS or the domain name server and will find out the IP address corresponding to this particular domain name. Now this request, after the browser has obtained the IP address, then the request will be passed along with one name server to the next until the address is found, because there can be multiple name servers, and therefore if the IP address of the particular server is not found on one name server, it can be sent to the other. Okay, and this will continue either till the point the IP address is found out or the request has been timed out. So for every request there is a particular time, 3 seconds or 6 seconds or 9 seconds, after which the request will be done. Now once the browser gets the IP address, then it will prepare the HTTP request packets and send them to the server. So now we are talking about again the same thing, that now the message which needs to be sent to the destination is going to be broken into packets. The header information is going to be appended to it, and then these will be switched to the server. Okay. So each packet is going to contain the source and the destination address. So the packets are sent on their way, and the dial-up connection or the first step is the internet service provider. So from the host computer or from the source computer, it first goes to the internet service provider's router. Now the router will look at the destination address in the packet, and if it can deliver the message, it will deliver it, otherwise it will pass it on to another router. So likewise, the packet will hop from one router to the other router until the message reaches its destination. So that is why the destination address in the packet is very important, because on whichever router or on whichever server the packet will reach, the destination will be checked, and if it matches with the destination of the host, then the packet will be considered as delivered, otherwise it will be sent for the next hop. Okay, so once the message will reach the destination, which is generally a web server, okay, then the request will be processed. So now the server will get the requested page, okay, it will prepare a reply message including the requested information. Again the server will also do the same thing, that it will divide the response message into packets and it will send them back to the originator of the request. So the same process which was followed for the internet request will be followed for the internet response also by the server, that is dividing the response message into packets, numbering the packets, and then forwarding them from one router to the other till the time it reaches the destination. Okay. So this is how the packets or the data or the request response mechanism works in case of an HTTP request, which is the most common form of communication or request response interaction on the internet. Now when we talk about internet, we understand that it is a global network, and we also know that it is, it is not managed by any one particular company, it is not governed by any particular government or set of people. So how does one follow the standards, and how does one ensure that the internet is working as per the defined rules and regulation? So for this, there are different organizations which specify the standards on the internet. So the technical standards which are related to the internet, they are published as requests for comment, okay, the RFCs, and these are very technical and detailed descriptions of the technology behind the internet. So we have the Internet Engineering Task Force, that is the IETF, which looks at the technical aspects of the internet and the protocols and the underlying network and hardware issues also of the internet. So you can find the details about this on the IETF website, which is the ietf.org website. Now if you look at the standards which are related to the World Wide Web, that is the HTML standards, then these standards are set by the W3C consortium. W3C means the World Wide Web Consortium, and their website is w3.org. So the W3C standards are basically, they are not implemented completely, but they are used, or these are like guidelines which need to be followed by the web browser. A small example could be that the W3C gives the guidelines of making all web browsers accessible to all, that is universal accessibility, so that people who have got benchmark disabilities, they can also use all websites equally, and there should be no problem for them. So likewise, W3C gives multiple standards related to user data privacy, the security, the type of content which needs to be displayed. All these types of standards or guidelines are provided by the W3C, which ideally all websites and the web users need to sort of abide by. But of course, that is, these are only guidelines and these are not strictly implementable, these are not rules, right? So when web browsers are used, a web browser basically is the client side application which is used by the client to find out or to retrieve, to view and to send information over the internet. So it is the user's interface to the internet is the web browser. So these are basically softwares which will allow us to send emails, to read the messages, to browse, to access the social media, and all these aspects can be dealt with using the web browser. Now this is about World Wide Web and HTTP and how the World Wide Web functions and what is the client side application of the World Wide Web. Now besides the HTTP, there are two very important protocols which are also very commonly used by the users on the internet. The first protocol is the Telnet protocol, which is also commonly sometimes known as the remote login. Right. So internet basically allows computers to converse with each other over networks, and Telnet allows the user to log into a distant computer almost as if they were physically sitting and using that computer. Whereas the FTP or the file transfer protocol, it allows the transfer of files between two computers on the internet. So actually when you are uploading and downloading the files on the internet, you are using the file transfer protocol, and when you are trying to remotely access a system, the services or the programs of the system, then you are using the Telnet program. Now for FTP program or the FTP file transfer protocol, how it can work? So it can be used, as I just said, it can be used to store the files. So you can use to store the file onto the distant computer, or you can use to bring the file from a distant computer onto your computer. Of course, you need a login for this. So what is the process of an FTP? The FTP client will first log in to the host computer or the FTP server or the FTP host. The client program will send the command to get the file, and the FTP host will download the file with any kind of error correction. So it is again the same process which is followed, that is the request and the response, but in this case one step which is very important step is there, that is logging in. That is, before you can download or upload a file, you need a login. There are some open FTP hosts also from where you can download and upload freely, but generally this is the securest way of using the FTP services. Now users can upload a file onto the FTP server. So in www or using the HTTP, you cannot do this. For this you need the FTP service. So uploading means that you are saving a file on a remote computer, and downloading means that you are bringing a file from a remote computer onto your computer, right. So you have to log in to the FTP host before the transfer can take place. Okay, so therefore you need to have a specific account, an FTP account with a password. Only then you can access. More so, you can only transfer the files to and from the directories which are accessible to that account. So each host can specify which directories a particular client can access and can download. So an access cannot be 100% access, it can always be a controlled access which can be given. Then, as you know, there is one very important type of FTP communication which takes place, that is an anonymous FTP. That is, a user can log in to any host using an anonymous ID. So you can give your email address, you can give anonymous, okay, but this is, the password is also optional. So here what is happening, these are public directories and therefore the host is allowing anybody to access them, but these are only available for downloading. Generally computers will not allow other systems to upload files onto them. So this anonymous FTP is used for public directory and downloading information from public directory. And although the word anonymous is used, but nothing is anonymous, because whenever you are trying to access or whenever you are trying to contact an FTP server or an FTP host, your internet address is being communicated to the host. So the host can always verify whether it is a trusted source or it is a non-trusted source, and therefore can decide to allow or disallow. So there are no standards for file formats which can be transferred on an FTP communication. So you can definitely, you can always have HTML files, but those you are using HTTP, but there is no limit to this, right, and without any help the users can easily handle the download. The users have to know the file structure of the file that you want to download, and you need to have the particular application program so that you can read that file. Say for example, if I am downloading a PDF file from a host, then I need to have a PDF reader on my system so that I can use that file. Then we have the telnet. Now in case of telnet, basically we see two types or two variants in the representation of the word telnet. One is in the caps, right, in the uppercase, and the other is the lowercase. So actually these two are two different words, and these are two different terms, what is to say. So the uppercase telnet is actually a protocol which provides a general bidirectional 8-bit byte orientation communication facility. So basically this is the protocol which defines how the communication is going to take place, that is how a user can log into another remote computer. Whereas the telnet, which is written in the lower case, is a program which supports the protocol over TCP. So multiple applications are built, just as I named remote login is another application which is built using the telnet protocol, the uppercase telnet protocol. Likewise, the lowercase telnet is also another application which uses this protocol for remotely logging in. So now for a TCP connection or the transmission control protocol connection, when you are using the telnet protocol, so data and control will, data and control signals both will flow through the same connection. So these are further intricacies of how the TCP follows and how the UDP protocol follows, because we know that the internet architecture is the same layered architecture that we use. So in this case, the data and control will move over the same protocol, whereas in case of UDP, which is an insecure protocol, they can flow over others. Right. Now when we talk about telnet, we also talk about the network virtual terminal, which is actually an intermediate representation of a generic terminal. That is, if a user wants to access another terminal, then they can use the NVT terminal also to log into that terminal. So this is also another variant of the remote login application, because it provides a standard language for communication of terminal control functions in the various devices. So friends, today we have talked in detail about the different protocols and how the internet request response mechanism works. We will be continuing with our discussion on web programming in the forthcoming lectures. Please keep watching CEC till then. Thank you.